Good evening. Good evening. Thank you so much for being here. We want to honor your time, and for that reason, we're going to get started with our program. My name is Tony Thompson. I'm Chief of Staff for SAISD, and I'm just going to take a moment now to welcome you, to thank you for being here, and to get this program started by giving you an opportunity to hear from our trustee, Art Valdez, who serves District 4 in SAISD. And after that, we'll get to hear from Superintendent Jaime Aquino. So if you would, Mr. Valdez.
Thank you, Tony. Well, it's great to see everybody here this evening. This is a very important meeting that we will have tonight. And I'm very happy to see a pretty good-sized crowd here at Burbank. I am an alumni of Burbank, graduate of Burbank. Thank you. Thank you. So welcome, and thank you all for joining us tonight. We're excited to be here in the neighborhood, Burbank neighborhood, with you to hear your thinking around the framework that will help us with our right-sizing study. I want to share a little bit of the history of this study with you. On June the 20th, the trustees and I put forth a resolution that called on district administration to thoughtfully and comprehensively analyze each campus to ensure we are providing a high-quality education for each and every student. We wanted to know whether resources are fairly distributed to support all students and all campus staff. And if not, how might we improve our operations to ensure a thriving culture for all? Prompting this study is a decline in student enrollment without a corresponding decrease in the number of buildings that serve students. In other words, we are putting money and resources into too many buildings when we could be putting more money and resources into educating our children, fully staffing our schools, and fairly compensating our staff. We put forth this resolution knowing that a study of this kind could result in recommendations to close or consolidate school buildings, not as a punitive measure, but as a strategy that is forward-thinking, courageous, and brave. Change is hard, I know, but with change comes opportunity. This is our opportunity to reimagine a better education and a better future for your children, and a better future for all the educators who mentor your children's growth. Tonight, we look forward to hearing your thoughts on how to ensure the results of the study meet your needs for a brighter future. So thank you, and at this time, I want to introduce our amazing superintendent, Dr. Jaime Aquino, sorry. Dr. Jaime Aquino, sorry.
Thank you, Trustee Valdez, and buenas tardes, familia. Oh, we can do better. Buenas tardes, familia. I am also happy and want to thank you for joining us this evening for this important conversation. And I'm going to be very brief, which is not so much like me, but you're not here to listen to me. We're instead here to listen to you. So we need you to know that we are committed to embracing, engaging, and educating your children as if they were our own, so that they have the power to shape their own world and make it even better. We are firmly committed as a familia to deliver on our promise of a high-quality education for every child, as we have outlined in our strategic management plan called Always Learning. Actually, one of our high school students said, don't call it a plan, call it a document of promises, which is true. It's the promises that we have made to our children, to you, the community, and to the city at large. And that's why we are here. We want to do better for your children, for our children, by ensuring that each student has similar access to extracurricular activity, to extraordinary educational experience and resources, regardless of the school that they choose to go or the neighborhood where their school is located. And I'm going to be honest, we are not happy. We're actually very dissatisfied with the current situation in which smaller schools face challenges in providing all the necessary resources and support to their students and staff. But we are also dissatisfied with the fact that our larger schools lack the necessary resources to adequately support their students due to the allocation of some of these resources to assist smaller schools. So as you can see, this really is a no-win situation for either one. Our smaller schools are not offering the array of services that we believe our students deserve. At the same time, our larger schools are underfunded because we take funds to make sure that we can subsidize our smaller school, so they're not able to provide all the resources that our kids need. So we are willing to take the tougher path to ensure that all children get the best education possible for a brighter future. We understand that many of you probably have a lot of questions about this study and what could it mean. You probably are anxious to, and that's why we're here. We want to hear to your questions, your feedback. We want you to know that this study might lead us to recommend to our Board of Trustees that we either combine schools or we close schools for the 2024-25 school year. But there's one important part that I want you to take away this evening, and that's that we are committed to making this study a transparent one, and one that is a two-way process, where you're going to give us feedback, and as a result of that, we're going to have a better approach. We will keep you informed, and we're eager to hear your thoughts too this evening. Your input truly matters for us, and we're grateful that you're here to work with us. You will have a voice in this process, and we want you to give us your honest thought, feedback, challenges, pushback on the criteria that we are going to be using to look at each campus. We know that these decisions are complex and not easy to make. If they were easy to make, they would have been made many years ago, and we understand why that is. Every campus and community has its unique factors, and the discussion that we'll have today will help us better understand your hopes, your aspirations, and your fears and dreams. There's one important value that we as a district really cherish and want to share with you today. This is the value that's underlying this process. We truly believe and have a conviction that resources should be distributed fairly across all campuses to support our students. What I mean by that is that we also have another belief that I think the entire San Antonio community believes, which is that those members of our familia or our community that have the greatest need more resources. That is why we're here, and we want to make sure that our most vulnerable students get the support that they need. It is important for you to know that this right-sizing study could begin to reverse years of growing systemic inequities, where some students and families benefit from higher spending, better buildings, and greater access to academic opportunity compared to others. Once again, thank you all for being here. Together, we're going to build a stronger plan that will enhance the education your children, our children, will receive and make our schools even better places. So I want to thank you for your dedication and your willingness to bring your feedback and pushback. And now it is my great honor to introduce somebody who probably does not need any introduction, as she's an icon in San Antonio ISD and in the city of San Antonio, my Chief of Staff, Toni Thompson, who went through school at SAISD. She's a Mustang. I'm sorry, Mr. Valdez, don't hold that against her. Having graduated from Jefferson and spent her entire career here at SAISD. So please join me in welcoming Toni Thompson.
Thank you. And again, welcome. As Dr. Aquino pointed out, I am a lifelong resident of San Antonio, and I've been employed with San Antonio ISD since 1980, way before most of you were born. And for that reason, it gives me a particular interest and a deep tie to anything and everything that happens in the SAISD community. This is home for me. You know, whether I grew up on the east side or went to school at Jefferson, SAISD is incredibly important to me, and it's for that reason that I'm honored to be able to serve as your facilitator this evening. And although I did graduate from Jefferson, I want you to realize that I felt it important to represent Burbank, which is why I'm wearing the orange and black. That was intentional. It's not just about Jefferson, it's about SAISD, and that's why we're here tonight. So, over the next couple of hours, we're going to engage in rich conversations about the future of our district and about our ability to deliver on the commitments and promises to provide a high quality education for every child in our community. And this evening we'll begin with an exploration of data, a review of the criteria we'll be using to frame our decisions, and then we will hear from you. And as Dr. Aquino has pointed out, it's real important that we hear from you and that we get feedback from you because it will help shape the framework that we're developing. Before we begin, I'd like to just take a minute to reflect on the questions on the tables that you probably thought about or reflected on, during your conversations as you were having dinner. And that was really about, the word thrive. And thrive by definition means to grow, develop, prosper, flourish, and do so in a vigorous manner. And we certainly know that the conversations mean that it's important for our schools to flourish and to thrive. And that's what we want more than anything, and we realize that's what you want as well. Jaime mentioned and referred to the district's strategic management plan, which is called Always Learning. And it's a plan that was created with unprecedented numbers of respondents. We had 6,000 individuals respond to the survey, which was an incredibly high number. And they gave us feedback about what they thought was important to be part of this strategic management plan. And as part of the plan, we also committed to a long-term conversation with our community about what it means to be successful or to thrive. So we convened a group of 50 diverse members who included families, staff members, community members, school leaders, to ask them to help us create a vision for thriving classrooms, thriving schools, thriving school leaders, central office, and the district. And again, during the breakout sessions, you'll have an opportunity to provide some feedback and input about what the term thriving really means. We also went back to the community and we asked them, if you had $100 to spend on a thriving school, how would you spend it? And close to 2,000 individuals responded. 50% of them, at least 52% of them, were students that responded, and this is what they had to say. They told us that these were their top priorities. They said that they wanted schools that are welcoming and safe. We want that too. Without safety, learning can't occur. So having safe schools is incredibly important. They also said that they wanted to offer extra support for struggling and advanced students. We certainly want to make sure that students that have the greatest needs are having those needs met in SAISD. They said that they wanted to prioritize student well-being and mental health. We hear more about mental health now, especially post-COVID, than we ever have before. And we want to ensure that we have the resources in the schools that can address mental health issues. They said that they wanted to prepare students to be at grade level or higher. You know, our expectation is that it's never lower than that. And again, if we want to provide the academic resources that students need to ensure that they are at grade level or higher, then this is important. They also said that they wanted to provide all needed resources for students with disabilities, and certainly that's always important. And to help students to be leaders and independent thinkers. Last night I had the privilege of sitting with a 20-year-old who graduated from Highlands in 2020, who was there because he's the secretary for the neighborhood association and has always been involved, even at a very early age, in advocacy, for the neighborhood. That certainly reflects, critical thinking and independent thinking, and that's what we want for all of our students. They also want to have up-to-date technology, which is important. They want us to embrace family and community, and Jaime certainly does an incredible job of embracing, the familia in San Antonio ISD, and resonates just how important it is to do that. They want us to offer a wide range of extracurricular activities. I don't think there's anybody that would disagree that providing those outlets and opportunities for students is important. Extracurricular activities, whether it's, athletics, whether it's fine arts, whether it's anything else, whether it's other UIL activities, those are some of the things that cause students to show up at school, to do well in school, to not get in trouble, and certainly it also brings the community in because they want to support what their children and what the students are doing. And then to have up-to-date furniture and equipment and just good, solid buildings. This building is incredible. It's a beautiful facility. I know it's fairly new in design, but we would like that for all of the campuses and the students in SAISD. Later, you're going to be able to see and give feedback on all of the thriving profiles, and the committee is going to welcome your insights, and you'll have an opportunity to work through 5 stations, and that will be one of them. Our thriving profiles cause us to reflect on whether, in our current reality, we're really in a position to deliver on our community's definition of a successful and thriving school. This reflection drove us to look at data, and we concluded that we are at a crossroads, and right now, in this day and time, and actually for several years now, we must either engage in this important conversation and deal with our current reality or tolerate what we feel are current inequities. As stewards of our children, we're forced to ask ourselves, can we live with a system where we offer more resources and support to some students and campuses, but not the same to all students and campuses? So whether you have spent all of your lives in SAISD as I have, or you're fairly new to the district and the community, you may be wondering, how did we ever get here? How did we get to this point? Jaime mentioned to you that, this has been a phenomenon that we've been dealing with or faced with, for the last 20 years or for over 20 years. And we've been losing enrollment steadily during that time frame. But we have not closed school buildings at the same rate that our enrollment has declined. Some of you may recall that back in 2008, 2009, and then a few schools in 2015 were either closed or consolidated, but those closures did not keep up with the rate of declining enrollment in the school district. We've been reluctant to close schools, and I think all of you would understand why. This is not an easy choice, for the school district to even consider. So our schools have become emptier over time. And while we have invested in innovation over the last number of years, and it has worked, we simply have not recovered enough students to make our schools thrive and sustain and sustainable. So if you look at this graphic, you'll notice that In 2010, the enrollment worst case estimate, what we thought, and this was based on a demographic study that was conducted in 2008. In 2010, the demographers anticipated and estimated that our enrollment by 2021 would be 48,666 students. In 2014, in an effort to recapture students and to hold on to students, the district started beginning a transformation process. And we transformed 35 schools, 32 of which we were able to transform because of 1882 partnerships, and Burbank, would be one of those campuses, and so are some of the schools that feed Burbank. And that did help us in 2021 have 2,000 more students who were coming to us from out of district, from other districts, come to SAISD. At the same time, though, it didn't help avoid losing significantly more students. And today, our enrollment is approximately 45,000 students, which is more than 3,000 students less than what the worst case prediction was in 2010. So again, we haven't been able to stem the tide of the enrollment decline as much, as we need to. So you may wonder, well, where are the children going? Where are the students going? On our website, we do have 2 reports that analyze the demographic landscape around or across the district and how it affects K-12 membership. And these reports indicate that there are 2 major causes for the decline in enrollment. One is the declining birth rate. The second is the fact that we don't have the same degree of affordable housing in our district boundaries as other districts outside our boundaries are able to have. So certainly if families, want to move, into a home or move into a new home, the cost and the affordability in the SAISD boundaries and in the urban core are certainly not as good as they are in some of the other surrounding school districts. So those are 2 of the major causes for the decline in enrollment in SAISD. We also know that the under 18 population has decreased in our district by 14% since 2010, and births have declined by 36% since 2007, and that's in the zip code specifically in SAISD. So it reinforces again the declining the declining birth rates. And another important point to share with you is that, because you may be wondering, how many students are we losing, to other school districts or to charters? And it was about 20% over that time frame that have left to go to charters or to other school districts. At the same time, again, at the end of 2021, we had 2,000 more students coming to SAISD from other school districts than any other district in Bexar County had that were transferring into their school district. So we're proud of that. It's just that the numbers, aren't keeping up. You can check our Rightsizing website for other details about this information, and we're going to give you a QR code so that you can easily access that information later. But let's talk about what this really means for the school district right now. As you've heard from both Trustee Valdez and Superintendent Aquino, our resources are spread too thin, and that creates inequities experienced by our students, their families, and the staff. Our smallest schools are more expensive to operate, yet they offer fewer programs and services. Smaller schools are more likely to have split classes or mixed grade levels. So for instance, in a real small elementary school, you may have a first and second grade split, or first and second grade bilingual split, because it is a small class, and at the same time, we need to make sure that we're providing the service and instruction. You also, on a very small campus, might only have 1 teacher per grade level, as opposed to 2 teachers per grade level, or 3 or 4 teachers per grade level that can plan together, that can have thought partners with each other about instruction and about academics and the curriculum. Certainly having police officers has always been important. We've primarily provided that at the secondary level. We're looking over time at being able to provide more police officer coverage, but when you have incredibly large numbers of schools that are very small, it makes that more of a challenge. It also makes it more challenging when you're at a small campus to have as many mental health resources as you need. So if a student really needs some mental health support and they only have a half-day social worker, then we can't necessarily tend to that need in the moment without having to call somebody else in to support. And then again, it also provides on smaller campuses fewer elective options, fewer enriched academic offerings that you would see if the if the campus rather was a larger campus. So the cost per student at our smallest elementary schools is 2.4% more than it would cost at a large elementary school. And that same pattern of inequity holds true for the other levels, whether it's the academy level, the middle school level, or the high school level. So this isn't a new story, and I briefly touched on that a minute ago when I mentioned to you that we did close some schools in 2008 and 2009. And during that time, a demographer conducted the analysis that I briefly referenced earlier and projected where we would be if we didn't continue to close some schools or consolidate schools over time. And again, our enrollment is at a lower point than even the worst case scenario that they projected back in 2010. So 15 years later, this is where we are again. And we are going to offer a video that will illustrate for you the difference between those in our familia who have and those who have less.
This is a tale of two schools. Our first school, Mountain Elementary, is fully enrolled and nearly every seat is filled. Like all schools, Mountain receives money based on the number of students, as well as their needs, such as whether they are English learners or they receive special education support. Since Mountain is fully enrolled, it has a full staff and offers a wide range of programs. That's why they can afford a full-time music teacher who provides after-school opportunities for students and who organizes performances for parents throughout the school year. Mountain has more than one teacher for each grade level and subject, so students benefit from teachers that can plan together. If a student and teacher pairing is not working well, parents can ask to move their kids to another class. At Mountain, when a student with special needs requires extra support, the services are provided right at the school by a full-time specialist. And when a student is in crisis, there's a full-time mental health professional on campus who can speak with the student on the same day, usually within minutes. Mountain enrollment allows the principal to decide whether to hire an instructional coach to support teachers, an intervention teacher to help kids who need to catch up on reading or math, a full-time librarian, or a family and community engagement specialist to work with families. Because Mountain is fully funded, the school can afford to send teachers to summer training to learn new strategies and share ideas with teachers from across Texas. Now let's take a look at our second school, Ocean Elementary. Ocean is under-enrolled. This means that their building has lots of extra space and empty seats. Because they have fewer students, they receive less state funding than Mountain Elementary, and they cannot fully staff their school or offer a wide range of programs with the money they get. To help Ocean, the district must take some money from Mountain and other schools so Ocean can provide basic services. Since Ocean cannot afford a full-time music teacher, they hire one part-time. This means the teacher is not always available to provide after-school opportunities for students or organize performances for parents throughout the school year. Because Ocean does not have more than one teacher at a grade level in each subject, the teacher must plan alone. If a student-teacher pairing is not working well, parents cannot move their kids to another class and must take their child to another school. At Ocean, when a student is in crisis, there may not be anyone on campus who can assist immediately. It could take hours or days to connect the student with help from a mental health professional. At Ocean, when a teacher or student struggles, support must be provided by the principal or assistant principal. They may not be able to afford an instructional coach, intervention teacher, librarian, or family and community engagement specialist. Ocean does not offer all special education services, so a student who needs help may have to go to another school. The Ocean principal must carefully choose resources and training for teachers because the school has limited money. All of our students deserve better, and this study will help us look at all of our schools and see if we're providing the high-quality education we promised in our Always Learning Strategic Management Plan. This will help us reach our district goal to love, nurture, and teach all of our students as if they are our own, so that they realize their power to shape the world.
So that's the tale of two schools. We would like for all of our students to have the mountain school experience. And we want all children to have more equitable access to educational opportunities, and we believe that right-sizing will help us accomplish this. When done right, right-sizing can lead to better schools. By aligning the number of campuses and their capacity with the right number of students, we can make sure that all schools get the resources they need and become more equitable and become stronger. To address our declining enrollment, excess buildings, and inequitable experiences, the board called on staff to study our capacity at its June meeting, and they directed us to develop a framework in collaboration with the community to evaluate all campuses. And that's why we're here this evening, and that's what you're going to be asked to consider, and for which we're going to request your feedback. So we're holding, this is our second of 14 neighborhood meetings across the district at this time to share the draft framework with you. Based on this feedback, staff will adjust the framework and prepare a final draft recommendation for the trustees that will be presented to them on September 18th, which is the middle block. Again, this resolution was passed by the board on June 20th. They tasked us with moving forward with this project in the manner in which we are proceeding right now, and we will take your feedback this evening. We'll take the feedback from the other 13 campuses during this phase one, and then we'll prepare a draft recommendation that we'll take to the board on September 18th. The final recommendation will go to trustees on November 13th, and the trustees will vote on the recommendation as one package, not one school at a time. So it wouldn't be, for instance, a recommendation, okay, we will proceed with the recommendations from administration except for Ocean Elementary. It will include all of the schools that are presented, by administration after we complete this process. Should the trustees approve the right-sizing recommendation, then a transition team of educators and leaders will be deployed to provide support to families, to students, to campuses, and to staff in general. And the transition team will pay special attention to students who are vulnerable or families who have vulnerabilities, including any students that are recent immigrants, dual language students, and families with students in special education programs. District staff will meet with each community at each closed school, if those are actually moved forward, and each receiving school at least twice after the board's final decision in November. So again, there will be lots of communication, not just what's happening right now, but after we take a draft recommendation to the board in September, that communication in the community will continue until there's a final recommendation that goes to the board in November. So today we're sharing the draft framework that guides our decision-making, and it has three components. The first component is our values. The second component includes primary criteria, and the third component includes contextual criteria. For the values are the norms. Those are the things that we believe are important, and it includes these 6. We want to foster thriving schools, which means that we want all of our schools to be vibrant and successful. The second is we want to support families and students. Our priority is to serve families and students and to ensure that they have the best educational opportunities possible. The third is to stand by our staff. We're committed to our staff. We have incredible staff members in all positions throughout the school district, and our commitment is to work closely with them to secure positions for them, albeit at other campuses perhaps, if in fact we move forward. The fourth is to view all criteria through an equity lens, because equity is important. No one should have less because we can't provide them more, given, our current reality. And instead of abandoning buildings, we will find new uses for the community that could include having age 0 to 3 early childhood centers at some of the buildings that would be closed. Or it would also include having mental health services or newcomer centers established at some of the campuses that would be closed. So the one thing that we don't want is to leave abandoned buildings in the community. You don't want that, and we don't want that either. And the last one is to upgrade remaining facilities and programs, to enhance programs and to upgrade buildings and facilities. And if there was a school that was going to benefit from the bond that was going to close, then the money from that school would follow the students, to the next school that they would go to, so that we can continue to do the kind of work that we've done here at Burbank and some of our other campuses most recently, to just provide an enhanced facility that facilitates learning. The second component is primary criteria, and we have 3, and one deals with what does the enrollment look like? How many students attend that school? The second one is the facility use. How much of the school is actually occupied? Is 90% of the school occupied? Is only 50% of the school occupied? That's one of the primary criteria that we initially consider. And the third one would be facility cost per pupil. How much does SAISD spend, to provide academic services to the students in that school, in that particular school? So those are the 3 primary criteria. The contextual criteria includes a set of indicators that'll be used to make sure we are identifying the best receiving schools, that we're meeting the needs of families and schools and students, and that we're meeting the short and long-term expectations of the board's goals and guardrails, the outcomes of always learning, and the thriving profiles. So at this time, we're going to give you an opportunity to start learning more about what's in the initial draft, and so that you can also provide more content or more feedback that might reflect, some other considerations, for these criteria. So each of you received a passport, and on your passport, we're going to ask you, first of all, to write your name, and if you want to share your email address or phone number, please do so. We don't leave these around. We collect them at the end, because at the end, you're going to turn the passports in for door prizes. But in the meantime, you're going to go to 5 different stations, and each station is going to give you a sticker. Now, the first station that you're going to go to is aligned with the color, that's the colored sticker that's on your passport. So I have pink, so I would go to the one that's pink, which is, farther back. I can see pink all the way back, and then I see orange, I see purple, I see green, and I see blue. But before you start moving, let me give you the other instructions. When you get to each of the tables, again, you'll get a new sticker. We're going to allocate 30 to 40 minutes for this exercise. So about halfway through, I'll let you know that we're halfway through. We want you to get to all 5 of the tables or all 5 of the stations if you possibly can. If there's one station that seems particularly of interest to you, you can certainly remain there longer, but we would encourage you to move every 5 or 6 minutes to the other stations if at all possible, or 6 to 7 minutes. And at each table, we're going to ask you for your feedback, and we'll use that feedback again to refine our framework, and you'll be able to see us organizing the feedback over here in another station. So our trustees and the superintendent will be collecting and organizing the feedback you get or you give us, and then we're eventually going to post all of this on the district's website so that you can see the feedback yourself and understand, what kind of comments and input were provided that will, again, influence the final framework. I will let you know when it's time to return by just kind of ringing the bell. Causes you to feel that you're at the Tobin, perhaps, and you didn't have to pay for a ticket. But I'll ring the bell so that you'll know to come back to your tables, because then we will want to, kind of work on reflections for a bit, debrief, and then we'll start to wrap up. But again, we're going to allow you to have 30 to 40 minutes to make sure that you can get through all of the stations and have opportunities to provide all of your feedback. So if you would now, please look at your color-coded sticker and head to the right poster at the back of the room. And we'll see you in about 30 to 35 minutes.